have 5,000, 10,000 or more in credit card bills? Call the Debt Helpline now for a free confidential debt analysis.
800-957-6063, 800-957-6063. Call the CESI Debt Helpline right now for a free confidential debt review. 800-957-6063, 800-957-6063.
World Soccer Radio is on the air around the country and around the world. My name is Danny Page. Gieber is out this week. It's just you and me, boys and girls, as our MLS previews will be well underway all week long leading into the season. I think we're talking to journalists and individuals from something like 7 or 8 teams. That said, there's a lot happening on the European scene. There's loads going on in the international game. It's the final friendly date before training camps open ahead of the World Cup. That's, of course, coming up on Wednesday. But here today, on Monday, our MLS previews continue with Jeff Crandall, who works for the Chicago Fire, a reporter for that team of sorts, member of the front office. It'll be great to chat with Jeff and talk about the team by Lake Michigan, the Chicago Fire. That's coming up a little bit later in the show. But first, we have to break down this incredible weekend of football. Stories abound on Saturday in the Barclays Premier League. Liverpool fans, I want to hear from you. Tell me, can your team win the title? Same goes for the crew from Chelsea. They've now created a bit of space. And Arsenal fans, I feel for you big time. That was not easy to stomach on Saturday. What do you think about Wenger? What do you think about your team? I want to hear about it. 800-878-PLAY. That's 800-878-PLAY. You know who didn't play in the Barclays Premier League this weekend? Manchester City. The Citizens going on to claim the Capital One Cup. Anytime you walk away with silverware before anyone else in a season, I think that's a good thing. And we're going to talk about City's win over Sunderland in the Capital One Cup. An interesting match at Wembley, to say the least. My name is Danny Page, in for Nick Gieber this week on World Soccer Radio, of course, on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. An absolute pleasure to be on Sports Byline. You can listen to us also on the TuneIn Radio app or on iHeartRadio. Check out our podcast in the iTunes Store. And, of course, big ups to our men and women in uniform listening around the world on the American Forces Network. It's D. Page with you here all week long. We'll start on Monday night as our MLS previews roll along and take a look at the weekend's action. I almost forgot about the Madrid derby, by the way. That was a fun one, too. 2-2, Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid. It's Spanish football. It's American football. It's English football and all the internationals. It's here all week, and it's World Soccer Radio. Hit me up on Twitter, by the way. I want to know what you have to say today. At World Soccer Radio. That's at World Soccer Radio. Like I said, give us a ring, 800-878-PLAY. A quick break, and we'll be right back on WSR.
Hey, developers.
Welcome back to World Soccer Radio. My name is Danny Page. We are obviously broadcast throughout the country on Sports Byline USA. What up to all of our affiliates? So many on the East Coast, which is great. What's up to you guys in Miami, Philly, so on and so forth. My name is Danny Page. Nick Gieber, the one, the only, he's out this week. He is getting some rays, getting some sunshine. Boy, I wouldn't want to see that guy without a shirt on, though. Now, you know what? Nick is such an incredible host of this show and such a veteran of covering soccer in the United States. It's just a pleasure to share the airwaves with him. Also, you can watch our stream, watchwsr.com. That's watchwsr.com. My name is Danny Page. Again, great to be with you. If you want to get in touch with the show, send me a tweet at World Soccer Radio or give us a ring, 800-878-PLAY, 800-878-PLAY. All right, we're going to talk about the Chicago Fire coming up a little bit later as part of our Major League Soccer previews. Jeff Crandall set to join us in, I'm not wearing a watch anyway, so I couldn't tell. He'll join us in about a dozen minutes. But I think we have to open with the variance of performances this weekend in English football. It was really a weekend of highs and lows for, a lot of teams. I think when I say highs and lows, some would think that the low end I would bring up initially is Sunderland. I personally don't feel that way. I think it was an outstanding performance, and I think they were simply going up against a team that spends hundreds of millions of pounds more than they do. Even on an annual basis, that's the difference in what the two teams spend. So I think Sunderland supporters who made the trip to Wembley, they were absolutely fantastic. The atmosphere was unbelievable. Ian Joy was our guest on Friday. He called the game, and Ian remarked a couple times about how incredible the atmosphere was. So big ups to Sunderland fans. When you talk about the lows in English football this weekend, in some ways, I think you have to bring up Arsenal. I think it's something that a lot of us saw coming when we saw what their February slate would look like and into March now. When we, prognosticated on this program in the opening week of 2014 that Wenger could go out and buy, but that he would not, and that's exactly what happened. He signed Kim Shalstrom, who was already injured, already had a knock, and has yet to make an appearance. The lows for Arsenal, but I think really high highs, for the three teams at the top of the table now. Well, I guess City is down in fourth, pardon me. But the three teams who experienced massive moments this weekend. Chelsea have 4 points. They are 4 points clear. Obviously, City are 6 back with 2 in hand, so a pair of wins for City, and they're even. Liverpool, though, just 4 points behind, and I think it's looking more and more like Liverpool will work their way into one of the automatic qualification spots, given their form and given Arsenal's form. They look a certainty to reach next season's Champions League and probably do so in the top 3. And then Man City. And I want to start with Man City because Man City, obviously and frequently experiences this sort of mid-season lull, don't they? We saw it in the performance against Barcelona. We've seen it in the league for 3 years running now. And the defeat to Chelsea, the draw against Norwich, these are just results you can't have. And you look back at Mourinho's title-winning teams for Chelsea, discluding this year, of course, because they have a long way to go. And you look at Alex Ferguson's teams that would win titles, and I think that there's a consistency that really runs specifically through it's a term that's used in the UK a lot, and I hate to be a Yank, using an important term, but it's playing for the shirt, isn't it? City still do have, in some ways, even these years later, they still have that little bit of a mercenary kind of feel, that they are hired guns, that they've been brought in just for the payday and for the prestige of playing with other big players, right? That's still just a bit of how I see Manchester City. But when it comes down to and it means that in the middle of a season, you're going to have some issues. And I think that's where City had a lot of issues in the Champions League group stage in the past was, right smack dab in the middle of some of those Champions League, group stage campaigns, they'd have some issues. And I think we saw it again in the league this year. Hopefully for City's case, they don't have that happen again. But when it comes down to a massive game like Sunday, they're going to perform. And yes, they conceded early, conceded in the first quarter hour. I think the one decision that has been made by the Chilean Pellegrini all year long that really we find bewildering, so many of us, is that Martin Demichelis, the Argentine, is played in front of Jolien Lescott. And to those of us that watch English football, that just doesn't make sense, right? It just doesn't entirely add up. Demi Kalis has just been brutalized over the last 2 weeks, and I know that Pellegrini has experience with him. I know he puts his faith in him, obviously, but I don't know how you continue to start, how you continue to start him in the back. So Sunderland go in front, not much of a surprise. Company's really had some issues too. But then again, when the center back you're playing with is nowhere near the level you're going to experience some of these issues. Sunderland go up 1-0, and then just two unbelievable moments and unbelievable goals. Just before the hour, that changed everything. And if there's been one player who, since the day he signed for Man City, probably outside of Vincent Kompany, that has been playing for the shirt, it is Yaya Toure. Yaya Toure is just remarkable skill-wise, but he also has been so incredible in the way he has put forth such effort every match, right? And yeah, maybe that goal was a little bit of luck, but really what I see from Yaya Toure, and we've seen him score massive goals. We saw him score a cup-winning goal already, 3-4 years ago. That's someone that has always played for City and played for the shirt. And I think one reason why City were so improved through the first half of this season, and so incredible in an attacking sense, I should say, and yes, they were improved in an attacking sense, was that Samir Nasri stopped being the mercenary that I talked about. He stopped being the hired gun, if you will, and he started being the player that really cared about his club's success and not just his own. Nasri's goal, obviously, unbelievable as well. And Aguero, the way he held up play for that goal was really outstanding. You can't but sit and wonder where this Man City team would be in Europe, in the Champions League, if Sergio Aguero was fit against Barcelona. I'm proud of City and what they did. I just want to see every one of those players go out in every performance play for the shirt. I feel like they can frequently drift in and out of league games, which is natural. I mean, when you're playing, City will play probably close to 60 games this year. When you're playing 60 games in a, 44-week span, it's going to be difficult to give absolutely everything you have every time out, but that's what Sir Alex Ferguson's teams did. That's what Mourinho's teams did and now do. And I want to, bring back into the picture what developed in the Barclays Premier League on Saturday. And you can clearly see now that Chelsea's players, they're playing for the shirt. And you can see that Liverpool's players, Suarez even, is truly playing for the passion he possesses for the Anfield Club. And I don't feel the same about Arsenal. I think that the Arsenal players have sort of lost faith in their own in the configuration of their own team. Now, I don't think this is permanent, but I think that there is certainly a sentiment of negativity in that locker room, and that there is only one way to go for this Arsenal team the rest of the year, and unfortunately that's down. And I think we're seeing that at this point. That's going to probably wrap up the predominance of our conversation on the English game for the day. But if you guys have tweets, if you guys have thoughts, I would love to hear from you. I'll read them on air. The Twitter handle is @WorldSoccerRadio, @WorldSoccerRadio. Liverpool supporters, how do you feel? Can you win the title? Chelsea, you're riding high, a 4-point advantage, although City, with 2 wins, would move to the top of the table based on goal difference. What do City fans think after that great result? You've just won the League Cup for the first time during the Sheikh Mansour reign. And Arsenal supporters, where are you guys? I love you. My heart goes out to you. It's been a tough 2014 for those Gooners fans around our country and around the world. Big thanks to our men and women in uniform that are listening around the world on the American Forces Network. My name is Danny Page. We will take a break and we will bring the analysis back home. When we return, Jeff Crandall, the Chicago Fire, we continue our MLS previews on World Soccer Radio. We'll be right back. All right, here we go. World Soccer Radio, Sports Byline USA. My name is Danny Page. Great to have you with us here on the show on this Monday night. Nick Gieber out this week. I will be with you all week long. Yes, it's my absolute pleasure. You know, one thing we'll get to in the next segment, obviously, is the cancellation of the U.S. and Ukraine match. I think it's a shame from a United States standpoint, but obviously there's a lot bigger things going on, with the real crisis now developing in the Crimea region. And in Ukraine, I think it didn't make sense to move that match. I think they should have called it off a week ago. Klinsmann will get time with a lot of his players in the camp. One thing we'll try and get to a little bit later, too, is Josie Altidore and the fact that he wasn't even on the substitute bench for this weekend, that's not what you want your star striker, doing here as we get ready for the World Cup. Well, let's focus on MLS, though, and get ready for the start of the Major League Soccer season this weekend. Jeff Crandall's our guest from the Chicago Fire. Jeff, great to have you with us as always, man. How are you?
Danny, it's great to hear your voice. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Update us on the last month with the Chicago Fire. I know you guys always relish your opportunity, in the month of February normally to travel a little bit, really establish that team bonding, and also get out of the chilly weather for the better part of a few weeks, right?
Yeah, definitely. Just yesterday returned from Tucson, Arizona, 2 weeks out there, and then two weeks before that in Florida. So I returned, and I think it was 7 degrees when I got off the plane.
Oh my gosh.
So certainly from the weather perspective, always good to get out of Chicago at that time of year. But also, it was a good start to the year under a new head coach in Frank Yallop, and basically a new staff. It was sort of a get to know you kind of thing, and things went very well. Results-wise, 7-1-0, and just 2 goals conceded over 8 games.
Well, Jeff, I think one thing that anytime any sort of professional sports franchise brings in a new head coach, that head coach has to put their stamp on things, whether it's the play on the field or the way things are run in some ways off the field. What are your impressions? How has it been under Frank Yallop, and what is he maybe doing a bit differently here?
Well, just when a new coach comes in, everything's new, right? But,
right.
Yallop is the kind of manager that kind of commands respect by coming in. He's obviously been successful in MLS. He had a successful playing career, so he has instant respect. But beyond that, it's the staff that he's brought in around him. C.J. Brown, Club Fire legend, returns as his first assistant. Clint Mathis, a guy obviously with a lot of success in MLS and even a World Cup under his belt as another assistant, and Brian Bliss as technical director all add a certain element. And the one thing you see in the locker room, and it was immediate in the get to know you phase, was that these guys keep it loose. They
right.
keep the players comfortable. They're not on their toes all the time, but when they need to be serious, they're serious. And I think players have really responded to that. It's been a really interesting preseason from that point of view, and I think guys have really enjoyed it so far.
Jeff Crandall, our guest here from the Chicago Fire. It's always a pleasure. Jeff, talk to me about Frank Yallop. I'm sure you'll have nothing but glowing things to say, considering he's your head coach. But really, I hear he's just an awesome guy, and I've interviewed him, I think, twice in the past, and I hear he's just a great guy to work for.
He really is. From my point of view, I do the content on Chicago-Fire.com, and he's someone that, he's allowed us some amazing access to the team to try and show people back in Chicago and around MLS what he's trying to implement. And we had a preseason all-access series that was amazing. Mic'd him up for a game, mic'd him up during training sessions.
Really?
And he's just very open about what he's trying to do. He's not going to spin you. I think he will tell you directly what he's thinking, and I think he sees it as it's more advantageous to him to do it that way. He's a player's coach for sure, but so far at least I would say he's a staff's coach as well, because he's made the job very easy, and he's allowed our content team to really give people a view of what's going on under his leadership.
Exciting stuff. I think that one thing one way I would kind of describe the team last year is you guys did underachieve in some ways. Is there the thought now that with one way to put it is I think the potential is really there for this group to obviously make the postseason and even go on a run. Is the idea that now that Frank Yallop is there, that there's been this change, that McGee can settle in further after his incredible performance, that this can be a very dangerous and solid team?
Yeah, on last season, I would just say the start to the season was so poor through March, April, May, that the rest of the season was just spent digging out of that hole.
Right.
And it was almost fitting in a way that this team lost out on a tiebreaker on missing the playoffs to come that close. They're the Fire were the best team from June on in MLS, and they still didn't make the playoffs. So it tells you the kind of hole they dug. Having said that, Mike McGee, absolutely a huge piece. And if you look at that roster from last year and the pieces that are returning this year, you would say they definitely underachieved. There's no way that you see the names on that roster and you think that they're a sixth-place team in the Eastern Conference. They should have been in the playoffs. I think everyone that's returned from last season felt a lot of disappointment with the way that things ended. And there is a fresh start. There's a lot of optimism. And, Yallop and Jeff Crandall said it following the win over Chivas Rayadas on Saturday night. But, these games don't mean anything. You still feel good about having such a positive preseason and getting 7 wins out of 8 games.
Is Lorenowitz really the key player? I mean, it looks like, from what I read, he'll be playing right in front of the back four in some kind of 4-1-4-1 formation. Is he really, and he's really one of the more outstanding defensive midfielders in the league, is he really the key player here?
I think if you're talking about the glue that holds it all together, I would say so. One thing that Yallop has brought into this team is, it's a 4-1-4-1. It can sometimes look like I don't like doing the numbers game on formations because they shift, but it can be a 4-4-2, 4-4-1-1, whatever you want to do. But really, he's the guy holding the defensive line and the midfield together. He's doing all the dirty work, and Yallop has given him high praise both just for his work ethic, and his leadership throughout preseason. He's the kind of guy that when he stands up at a meal, everyone else stands up and walks out, or he is the linchpin right now in this team, and he's kind of grown into that role. This is his second season, and was sort of the vice captain last year under Logan Paus. As Logan Paus's playing time declined a little bit, he was kind of seen as the second captain, and I think that continues this year.
Jeff Crandall, our guest from the Chicago Fire here on World Soccer Radio. If you have any questions for Jeff, send me a tweet at World Soccer Radio. Always a pleasure to have you here. Jeff, talk to me about the goalkeeper, Sean Johnson. Obviously, a pretty outstanding player. Hasn't made the massive breakthrough, into the U.S. team that he wants to make at the top level, receiving the top call-ups. But talk to me, kind of state his case. I've interviewed Sean before as well, and I think, the potential has been there. He's realizing that potential, and he seems kind of ready to make that next move.
So, yeah, Sean is always he's like a big save goalkeeper, right? He will make saves that so many guys in MLS won't make. There have been times in his career, though, where he's given up a goal maybe he should have saved, and I think that's what people remember. People obviously will remember the U.S. team's failure to qualify for the Olympics and the goal he gave up against El Salvador that sent the U.S. home from that tournament. But I think he's recovered very nicely from that. That's 2 years ago now, almost, and he's put himself in the national team picture. He earned his first national team call-up after his rookie year, so this is a guy that was barely 21 and already playing for the national team. I think he's in the picture for the World Cup. A lot of people will give that third spot right now to Nick Rimando. Right. I talked to so many around the league and in the U.S. soccer sphere that believe that. I still think Sean's in with a chance. I think traditionally that third keeper spot has gone to an older, good for the locker room type guy, and I don't doubt that Nick Rimando is that, but I do think Sean Johnson gives you something. He could be your goalkeeper in 8 years. He could be your goalkeeper in 4 years. And my case would always be in that position. Sometimes maybe you bring the guy along for the experience versus bringing a guy like Ramondo who, is not likely to play, not likely to be there in 2018.
Yeah, and the thing about Sean Johnson as well is that if you are an outfield player, we'll call it, and you're 24 years old and you're not on the World Cup roster, you're thinking, gosh, is it going to happen at 28? Is it going to happen for me? But you're right when you talked about Sean Johnson's first call-up and the fact that he had just come out of his rookie year. Sean Johnson is like a baby in goalkeeping years. He's 24 years old. You can, as Friedel has shown us, you can be a goalkeeper at the highest level until you're 40. So in some ways, he's really just getting started in a lot of ways. Hey, we got a break, Jeff. Can you hang with us to the other side and wrap up this chat?
Absolutely, no problem.
Great. It's great to have Jeff with us and so many Chicago Fire fans watching here. Of course, we are on Sports Byline USA, affiliate stations around the country. We're also on iHeartRadio and the TuneIn Radio app. Monday through Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Nick Geber is out this week. Nick's on vacation, bronzing on south of the border, and great for Nick to get some time off here on the show. My name is Danny Page. I'll be here all week long with you. You can also check out our stream, watchwsr.com. That's watchwsr.com. Jeff Crandall of the Chicago Fire is my guest. A quick timeout here on World Soccer Radio. We'll be right back, boys and girls. Back here on World Soccer Radio, Sports Byline USA. My name is Danny Page. pleasure to be with you here on this Monday night. Nick Gieber is out. He is on vacation this week. I'll be with you all week long. You can hit us up on Twitter at World Soccer Radio, or you can give us a call, 800-878-PLAY, 800-878-PLAY. I'd like to reintroduce our guest, Jeff Crandall from the Chicago Fire. All right, the guy everybody wants to talk about, Jeff, that was Mike Magee. I mean, what a surprise he was. And can he have just as good a year this year as he did in the second half?
That's a great question. I don't think when that trade went down last May, which the swap, obviously, the famous swap, maybe the most lopsided trade in MLS history, at least as it looks right now, between Mike L.A. and the Fire for McGee and Robbie Rogers. I don't think anyone saw an MVP campaign out of Mike Magee, much less the Fire making the run that they did. But it's pretty hard to live up to that. He's going to be a marked man for sure. It's not to say that Magee is not a very good player, and it would be hard for me to bet that the 21 goals and 7 assists that he hit last year would be what he does this year.
Right, it's almost impossible.
Yeah, I mean, how many? It's tough. If he does it though, I'll give Mike a fantastic pat on the back because at that point it would be pretty incredible.
Who else?
But having said that, Mike will be a huge contributor to this team, obviously, this year.
Who else should we keep an eye on that us out west may not know about? Who's a player to watch that you've seen over your 2 weeks in Florida and 2 weeks in Tucson with the team? Who's somebody you've seen that can really break through this season?
Yeah, I think there would be conventional wisdom would. Obviously there's a lot of new players on the back line, but I think that the two revelations in preseason for the Fire have been Benji Hoya and Harry Shipp, two young guys. Harry Shipp is a Fire homegrown player signed with the club out of Notre Dame after helping them. He was, a Matt Kerman finalist, helped Notre Dame to the NCAA College Cup in December. Frankie Alp has said that he would have been a top 3 pick in the Super Draft, and to be able to pull him out and right into your team is pretty incredible. And then they had Benji Hoya kind of fall right into their lap a little bit when he signed with the league, and only 3 teams went into the weighted lottery. The other 2 were Seattle and Real Salt Lake, and the Fire had like a 75% chance of getting him. And I remember we got him, I believe, the day we arrived in Bradenton, 2 weeks or a weekend to preseason. Both are able to play. Both have played a little bit on the wing, but a lot centrally. Maybe as that underneath guy behind the front-running striker, both able to create very well and combine well in midfield. And they just, for young players, you think back to, I always think back to 2002 with the U.S. team in Korea, Landon Donovan and DeMarcus Beasley as 20-year-olds. And I remember distinctly Bruce Arena saying, they were so young and they'd only had success that they weren't scared of stepping up to the biggest stage in the world at that age. And that's kind of what you see in Benji and Harry, is that they have a little bit more flair than the regular youth player that comes in. Benji, obviously coming from Santos Laguna, has been in a professional environment for 2.5 years, and I think that helps him immensely in this situation. Harry, one of the best collegiate players in the last few years, and I think both could be pushing for a spot in the starting lineup over the next month or so.
Jeff Crandall, our guest here on World Soccer Radio of the Chicago Fires. We continue our MLS previews leading into the season, and I mean, geez, there's so many teams now. We'll actually work our way a couple weeks into the season as we roll along with these previews. So you talk about those young players. I want to take even a step back, and I think, when you look at the league and where the league is now compared to where when you started with the team a few years ago, how has the following surrounding the Chicago Fire grown? Obviously, what's the perception like of the team, and how is the popularity growing of the team and the passionate supporter base in the Chicagoland area?
Yeah, I think it's been good. I don't think it's been as high as we've seen some other markets grow.
Right.
But, the unique thing for my job is I'm on Twitter all the time, and I am really plugged into the digital side, and just seeing the conversation driven about not just the Fire, but MLS as a whole. I'm just thinking from the time I started with the Fire in 2010, this is my 5th season, and seeing where it's gone, there's so many people engaged with the brand, with North American soccer at this point that I remember coming into this job and people, family members saying, "Can you really make a living working for a professional soccer team?" And at that time, it was still kind of a little bit of a question. At this point, it's not a question anymore. It's you only seem to see upside, and as the league keeps growing, bigger markets coming in and all that, it's almost like the ante keeps getting upped. And I think the Fire have benefited, from some of these newer markets coming in. I think this club is always kind of a benchmark in MLS, and I think it's been a few years since the club has won, but it's still been maintained as one of the top clubs in MLS, and I think it just the fans in Chicago are hungry for a championship, and we've come close a few times in the last few years, but there's a passionate fan base here, and it's been a real treat to get to work with them, get to know the community, and see it grow.
I couldn't agree more, Jeff. Hey, what does the schedule look like? How much do you travel, and are there any road trips that you're really looking forward to?
Yeah, so actually the team opens up on Sunday afternoon at Chivas USA. I think
Right.
It's the only game on Sunday after a full slate of games on Saturday to open the season. I won't be going to that one. The following week, though, they head to Portland, and I will be going for that one. I've never been, I forget what they're calling it now, the old Geldwin Field, and I know everyone in MLS that's listening is going to get on me. But the atmosphere in Portland is absolutely outstanding, from what I've seen on TV, and I'm really looking forward to going there the second week of the season and not having to worry about, national TV cutaway in case Timber Joey scores a goal. Having said that, then the third week of the season, the Fire finally have their home opener against the New York Red Bulls, a rematch of that final day clash that ended up being a 5-2 loss for the Fire, ending their hopes for the playoffs, and a win for Red Bull that handed them their first piece of hardware with a supporter shield last year. So those are the first 3 weeks of the season. Not the easiest schedule.
No.
It's important for the team to get off to a good start against Chivas. As obviously, taking points in Portland, we saw last year, is very difficult, and when you have a team like New York that you have to play, points are never a guarantee either.
Lots of great content on the digital side from Jeff Crandall and the Chicago Fire. What kind of stuff are you working on these days? Where can we find everything you do?
Yeah, like I said, the thing I think I'm really proud of is the preseason all access, and I give Frankie Alf and his staff a lot of credit for going that in depth with us. It's something a lot of coaches wouldn't be comfortable with. He kind of has welcomed it with open arms. So the final episode of that will come out in the lead up to the game against Chivas this weekend. And then, one other piece that I was really happy with is we strapped a GoPro on Sean Johnson's head, I think our first week in Tucson, and it got incredible views.
Right.
It's such a unique piece to see what a goalkeeper sees when he's making a save and going through goalkeeping drills, something that I'm really proud of. So a lot of that stuff, obviously, just regular coverage of the Fire going forward, and hopefully we're covering a lot of wins.
Very good stuff, Jeff. We really appreciate it. Always good to catch up, man. Thanks for this extended interview, Chicago Fire, Jeff Crandall. Hey, I got one question before you go.
Sure.
What to do about Josie Altidore, man? Oh, boy. That's a heartbreaker, isn't it?
I love Josie. He's a Red Bull Metro Stars guy, but I love him, and I really hope it works out for him.
Yeah.
The U.S. it'll be tough for the U.S. to do much, in my opinion, in Brazil if Josie's not firing on all cylinders. So whatever his old affiliation is, I really hope it works out for him because it can only benefit the national team.
Couldn't agree more. Jeff, thank you so much, bro. Take care, and we'll be following your content all year long.
Thanks, Danny. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Jeff. Take care. All right, Jeff Crandall, our guy. Awesome guy. I met Jeff, I want to say 5 years ago when I carried or broadcast the USL PDL Championship game, and Jeff worked in the USL offices at the time. I think they had First Division and Second Division back then. It was before It was before USL Pro, I can tell you that much. And that, that goes back a ways right there if we're going before USL Pro. So, great to have Jeff with us. It's a pleasure as always. Josie Altidore. Oh, man, poor Josie. Can't get in the team, not even on the bench for Sunderland. And I think this is a lesson for Josie, no, not to come back to MLS, but that, perhaps his place is in one of the mid-level European leagues. And, there's no way to know that. I think going to Sunderland was a great opportunity, but he just hasn't been able to produce. I think he's a fine striker. I think he actually may still perform at a high level for the United States coming up this summer in Brazil. Well, he has to, and I'm a perennial optimist. So I think I'll just leave it at that as far as how he'll perform for the U.S. team. But it just has to be frustrating as a player to go from, absolutely killing it, which is what he was doing in the Dutch league. He was on fire. And then he comes to England and has, does he have one goal to his name? I think that he might have two. So for Josie, it's obviously incredibly frustrating. One thing we talked to Enjoy about from beIN Sports on Friday was, that's going to be one of the interesting stories is to see what Josie Altidore is capable of doing, coming up in a cup final at Wembley. And he didn't even make the subs bench. Obviously, Josie would have been looking ahead to this U.S. game and a chance to show everybody, maybe grab a goal or two and say, hey, I'm still here. But now that the United States men's national team match has been canceled, and that hasn't been officially announced by United States Soccer, but there's reports all over saying that it is done. What do you think about Josie Altidore? Should he be starting? Should the United States consider starting Aaron Johansson? And I know we're a long ways away, and I know we have to wait and see what happens in camp coming up in May and in early June. But should he possibly be up front? I mean, can you go in the opening game against Ghana and start a striker who has one goal to his name for this season? Can you do that? I think Klinsmann will really struggle to start Josie Altidore. What do you think? Let me know on Twitter, @WorldSoccerRadio. That's @WorldSoccerRadio, or give us a call as the show is winding down here. 800-878-play. 800-878-play. For those of you watching, I'll give you the studio number right now. That's watchwsr.com. Jeff Crandall, Chicago Fire. When you say, just to close out that interview, when you say Chicago Fire, you just think of one of the top clubs in Major League Soccer, always, constantly. And yes, they haven't been winning as much the last couple of years, but they are one of the best around. And, props to Jeff and the Chicago Fire team. Frank Yallop is just outstanding. Some really great players on that team, and it's really just a great organization. So, us here at World Soccer Radio will surely be behind them. Coming up on our previews tomorrow, Mark Serber will rejoin us. We'll get into Chivas USA a bit more. We sort of started on that coverage last Wednesday, and then we'll look at DC United as well. DC United, a journalist that covers DC, coming up on the show tomorrow. Also, my name is Danny Page. This is WSR. We're going to take a quick break and close things out when we come back. Let's get those tweets in at World Soccer Radio. We'll be right back.
All right.
All right, winding down World Soccer Radio here on Sports Byline USA. My name is Danny Page here on this Monday night in Southern California, just about 7 o'clock Pacific time. We're on the air 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Yes, we will say that for our East Coast affiliates on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Remember, you can also listen on iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio. We flew through this show today, folks, and Jeff Crandall, great guest, Chicago Fire. Looking forward to seeing what they do this year. They open the season Sunday here in L.A., taking on Chivas USA. I know we will surely be watching. Let's get to a couple tweets here. Here's Bernie Wilkinson at Bernie_J. Feeling good about Chelsea's chances, but a lot of big games to come. Bernie has one more. He says, I know they are not MLS yet, but much love to Orlando. 4 games versus MLS teams and 4 draws at the Disney Pro Classic. And isn't that what builds successful teams, around MLS are, successful teams under them. We saw it with Seattle. We saw it with Portland. Now we're probably going to see it with this Orlando City group. And really exciting stuff for Orlando. Good show across the board here, guys. Hopefully, with a little bit more time tomorrow, I can hear from you guys a bit more and give you my opinion on Josie Altidore and this U.S. friendly being canceled. It's very frustrating. It's frustrating for all of us just to see that he was not included in the team sheet. Love the guy and wish him the best and hope he can help lead the U.S. to some sort of glory. Plenty more on that tomorrow as we also look at DC United and Chivas USA in our MLS previews. My name is Danny Page. This has been World Soccer Radio on Sports Byline USA. Always a joy to be with you here on the Sports Byline Network. Coming up, the one and only, the man who started it all, Ron Barr. Ron Barr next on Sports Byline USA. Big thanks to Jerry up in San Francisco and the whole crew up there as well. Nick Gieber out this week. My name is Danny Page. I'll be with you all week long. It is my absolute pleasure. Send me a tweet in the next 23 hours, and I'll read it on air. At World Soccer Radio. That's at World Soccer Radio. Like I said, the man, Ron Barr, is up next. We'll be right back here on Sports Byline USA. Take care, everybody. Good night.
Good night, Danny.
Good night. Thank you, sir. Good night, everybody.